I lodged in Tanner's Close in the Canongate, in the same house with Burke and his wife. On the afternoon of the 31st October last, I was in their room along with Helen McDougall, when Burke came in with an elderly woman, who he said was a relation of his mother's from Ireland. She appeared to be somewhat the worse of drink. She sat down by the fire, and Burke gave her whisky. I observed that she was a stout-made woman, dressed in a short gown and petticoat with a mutch upon her head. She spoke with the Irish accent. Burke pressed her to drink repeatedly, and she did drink several glasses. After some time he desired me and Anne Gray to leave the room, as he wished to speak privately with his relation. We went out accordingly. In the course of the evening I returned again, and found the door shut. I heard some noise within, as if of scuffling or moving about, and afterwards all was quiet. The next morning I went into the apartment again, and the woman was not there. I inquired of Burke where she had gone, and he answered that she had left the house early. Some days thereafter, I observed Burke and Hare carrying a large tea-chest out of the house. It appeared to be heavy, and they bore it between them with difficulty. I asked what was in it, and Burke replied that it contained some old clothes, which he was going to sell. I remarked that the chest seemed very weighty for such contents, but he made no answer. On the following day, I saw the bed in which the woman had lain, and the tick appeared to have been much disordered. The straw was pressed down in a manner which I had not observed before. I never saw the woman again after that night.
On the morning of the 4th of November, I was requested to attend at Dr Knox's rooms in Surgeons Square for the purpose of inspecting a body which had been brought there. Upon entering the apartment, I observed the body of a female lying upon the table. She appeared to be about the middle age and was quite dead, but still warm. The body was entire and there was no mark of violence externally visible upon the head, neck or breast. I examined the face particularly and found a small quantity of frothy mucus about the mouth and nostrils. The tongue was slightly protruded and there was a suffused appearance about the eyes. The skin of the face and neck bore a darkish, livid hue. Upon more minute inspection, I discovered that the back part of the chest was much discoloured and that there were marks as if from pressure upon it. I also observed that the blood about the head and neck was unusually fluid. From these appearances, and from the absence of any wounds upon the body, I was of opinion that death had been occasioned by suffocation. I could not attribute death to natural causes. In my judgment, it had been produced by some person forcibly compressing the mouth and nostrils, or otherwise preventing respiration.
I lodge in the same stair with Burke, in Tanner's Close, in the Canongate. On the afternoon of Sunday the 2nd of November, I returned home about 3 o'clock, accompanied by my wife. We went into Burke's room, where we had formerly been accustomed to sit. Burke and his wife were there. I asked for the old Irish woman whom I had seen there on the Friday before, and Burke answered that she had gone away. I observed that the bed appeared to be unusually tumbled and disordered, and I thought it strange as the woman had slept there. After some conversation, my wife went towards the bed, and happening to lift up the clothes, she exclaimed that there was something underneath. I immediately went forward, and pulling down the bedclothes, I saw the body of a woman lying stretched across the bed. The head was towards the wall and the feet towards the side of the bed. The body was covered with straw or chaff. I touched the face, which felt cold and stiff. I then asked Burke what this meant, and he said it was nothing to concern me, and that the woman had died of drink. I observed that there was blood upon the mouth. I told him I would inform the police, upon which he became much agitated, and desired me to say nothing about it. He then offered me money if I would keep silence. I refused, and immediately went to give information.
In consequence of information received, I went, upon the evening of Sunday the 2nd of November, to the house in Tanner's Close, occupied by Burke. I was accompanied by other officers, Upon entering the apartment, I observed Burke and his wife present. I proceeded to examine the bed, which appeared to be in a very disordered state, and upon turning down the bedclothes, I discovered the body of a woman lying concealed beneath the straw of the bed. The body was lying on the right side, with the knees drawn up. The face was much discoloured, and there was a quantity of blood about the mouth. The eyes were open, and the tongue slightly protruded. I asked Burke how the woman came there, and he replied that she had died from excessive drinking. I observed no marks of violence upon the throat, but the appearance of the face led me to suspect that death had not been occasioned by natural causes. We removed the body from the bed and conveyed it to the police office. Burke appeared much confused and attempted to account for the presence of the body by stating that the woman had come to his house for lodging and had died suddenly during the night.
About 8 o'clock in the morning, Burke was brought from the toll booth to the scaffold which had been erected in front of the prison. He was dressed in a black coat and white trousers, and walked with a firm step, supported by the executioner. On ascending the platform, he looked round upon the immense multitude assembled, but said nothing. The Reverend Mr. Marshall attended him, and engaged in prayer. During this time, Burke appeared composed, though somewhat pale. When the prayer was concluded, the cap was drawn over his face, and the rope adjusted round his neck. At 5 minutes past 8, the drop fell. He struggled for a short time after the fall, the hands being observed to move convulsively, but in a few minutes all motion ceased. The body was allowed to hang the usual time before being cut down.
From an early hour in the morning, the Lawnmarket and adjacent streets were densely crowded with spectators who had assembled to witness the execution of Burke. At a few minutes before 8 o'clock, the culprit was brought forth from the toll booth. He was attended by the Reverend Mr. Marshall and supported by the executioner. Burke ascended the scaffold without assistance and advanced to the front of the platform. He appeared calm, though his countenance was deadly pale. The rope having been placed about his neck, he remained for some moments engaged in prayer with the clergyman. When the preparations were completed, the executioner retired. Upon the signal being given, the bolt was drawn, and the platform instantly fell. The criminal dropped, and for a brief space exhibited slight convulsive motion of the limbs. The crowd remained in profound silence for several minutes after the fall. He continued to hang until life was entirely extinct, after which the body was cut down and removed.